Hello to everybody at IU. I enjoyed speaking with you last Friday night. We're going to look at some resources on Westlaw to help you out with the neglect of a dependent problem. Let's go live and show you now. Okie doke. So here we are on Westlaw. You can navigate to it by going to lawschool.westlaw.com and signing in. The button across the top, Westlaw, will take you into the site. And once you're there, keep in mind the same navigational things, right? Click on the Westlaw logo to go back to the home page, select your jurisdiction from this drop-down bar, pull in related federal from check-in over here, and then hit save to make sure that that shows up. If you're looking for something like neglect of a dependent, and you run the search across the global search bar, keep in mind that this content along the left-hand side is connected using some of the tools that we'll look at. And the reason that I'm saying that is because you can pick up the trail anywhere and connect the dots from starting from any of these spots. I'll give you what I would usually do, which is when you're looking at some of these cases, yes, I would give these the eyeball test because we've ranked them first. We happen to think they're important. But notice some of these things along the right-hand side. If you don't see it, these double dashes to bring out the related documents. Did you know that Westlaw has the Indiana practice series? That might be helpful. Let me open it in another tab. There's actually a pattern jury instruction that lay people in Indiana hear when they need to decide these types of cases. Click on that. I'm going to open that up in another tab. And again, anything that you happen to want to look at, I would sort through it as well. Maybe you're just pulling recent cases or you're just pulling criminal cases. Yeah, it wouldn't do me a whole lot of good to pull some civil stuff. You can also see some of these other more sophisticated filtering things, which will be important to you as you finish your law school career and move out into the practice. Let me go into 31.8, though, this Indiana practice series that talks about neglect of a dependent. The reason why these sources on Westlaw are pretty great is because you can see how it's connected to things like those key numbers, other legal encyclopedias, and links that talk about relevant cases. See how if we go over these footnotes, wow, there's lots of those. This is an illustration. This is another illustration. This is another illustration, and links out to these cases so that when you read White, you know that it is about the point of law covered over here. Saving it to folders with this icon over here is going to allow you to build your expertise as law students, and of course navigate to those folder menu across the upper right hand side in order to be able to pull this up later, like when you're at home later. If you pull up a case like White, keep in mind a couple of things. The first, that yellow flag indicating negative treatment, click on the flag or click on that negative treatment tab to see just what in the case was questioned, distinguished by these other cases. If it were red, then it would give you the worst treatment first, and it would tell you that maybe it was overruled by this one, and then you just mouse it over to see that. Citing references will again connect you to the things on Westlaw that talk about your case, whether that's secondary sources, whether that's cases, whether that's anything else, but you can see that here. In fact, once we go through enough of the Indiana practice series, hey, neglect of dependent, notice there I've got those eyeglasses too, indicating it was previously viewed. Let us go back to the document itself, keeping in mind that the West Attorney editors are writing this summary and writing the head notes, not the language of the court. How can you get to the language of the court? Click on that number 1. That's the language of the court, right? Anything in that opinion section, anything below here is the language of the court. Up here, it's stuff to help you actually understand what's going on a little bit better. So what you can notice here as well too is if you click on this change view button, that's what it should look like. It should be on these 2 columns so that way you can say, okay, criminal law, not as interested in some of these things that have to do with trial, but hey, child abuse, neglect, or endangerment is a lot more on point with what I want. See those key numbers? You'll see them in the secondary sources. You'll see them in the search results. You'll see them all over. Clicking on one of those is going to run down some of what we've identified in Indiana State and Fed. Now change that jurisdiction so you go just to Indiana State cases, but that's how you connect something that happened 100 years ago to something that happened last year. Is if you see that number, look for that level of specificity. You could even run some searches and the results for some great fact patterns, and then you're good. Let me go back to the history in that search that we ran originally for neglect of a dependent. neglect of a dependent. And if we go into the statute that talks about neglect of a dependent, which was this one, which you could have gotten from the citing references as well, or from that secondary source, you'll notice a few things. Again, that yellow flag that indicates that there is what? Oh, that the prior version was unconstitutional in 2006. Don't so much care about that because we're thinking about the law right now. And then there's proposed legislation out there. Notice on Westlaw, the history graphical statute is going to run down what the law was at a certain point in time. Particularly interesting if you're looking at an offense that is being charged that happened a few years ago when the law was something different. And again, citing references to connect you to what? The secondary source that talks about child abandonment or neglect of a dependent, plus all of the other issues that are raised by this statute. I guess child selling is part of this statute, so that's a section of the Indiana Law Encyclopedia that talks about it. Not relevant to your problem, but again, the fact is that these things are connected so that way you can get to them. Lastly, the notes of decisions. These are the cases that actually interpret the statute. How to get to a much better view, if you click on hierarchical view and sort A through Z, then it actually looks nice, right? A through Z like this, so that way, if you're looking for something like maybe cruel confinement, these are the 3 head notes that have to do with cruel confinement. And that's pretty cool. That's very cool. There's a lot more that's cool about Westlaw. If you go to the lawschool.westlaw.com page, you look for connect with your account manager, you'll be able to connect with that person that way. If you're with one of my schools, follow at Lindy Hop Lawyer on Twitter for my in-person availability, always pinned first, as well as links to other walkthrough videos from the 10 schools that I serve and other legal research ephemera. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you all again soon. Thanks.